What's up, mages? It is I, your wintry neighborhood Winterspell. Hope everyone's doing great today. I'm here to give you another deck profile for the Palworld TCG. So, this time we're looking at my green farming deck, which is a deck that focuses on producing food and using that food to activate different effects. So let's get started with the Lucky Pals. First up, we have 3 copies of Lylene, Blessing of the Goddess. So this is actually a really great pal. So on deployment, you get 3 food. Once per turn, you can consume 3 food. Check the top 5 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 6 cost or less pal among them. Just put them on the field and then shuffle the deck. So I was running her at 2, but I managed to get 3. I've got 2 OSRs and one of the regular ones. The OSR really does look good. So she's there to get out a bunch of pals, essentially for free. Now, keep in mind it is kind of randomized. Although, depending on what type of build you decide to go with for this deck, you could even stack the deck to work with her. So next we have 2 copies of Mammorest, Roar of the Wilds. So this guy is a 2000 beater with 4 strike, and he can be played for free using the breeding farm that we're going to look at later. So when he's also put in the graveyard, you get 3 food. So he can be used as a beater. It also doesn't matter if he goes to the graveyard, because he's getting you food that you need for your abilities. Alright. To finish out our Lucky Pals, we have 3 Dig Toys Seismic Drillback. So this guy is a 6-drop, which is good, because that means we can play him with Lylene. We can also still play him with the breeding farm. So he's a 900 with 2 strike. However, he becomes a 1900 with 3 strike as long as you have 10 or more souls. So also once per turn, you can consume 2 food. Until the end of this turn, this guy gets plus 500, so that puts him at either 1400 or 2400. And he gets Breakthrough. So if he defeats another pal, that opponent still takes damage. So that's a very powerful endgame card right there. And it's still pretty good even in the start of the game. So let's get into pals. So first up, we have 3 copies of Chickpea, My First Pal. So this has the same effect as Mammorest, except you get 1 food. So this is good as an early game play. Bring them out, have a fast attacker. You can use it to block, and you'll get food. Or you can use it as a low-cost assigner for the different structures you're going to have. Next, we have 3 copies of Floppy, Snack Lover. So on deployment, you get 2 food. It's a 3-drop. So this is something you're playing in the first couple of turns of the game. It's a 400 with a 1 strike, so it's not a huge attacker. This is another one you're going to really be using to assign to different structures. And it gets you fast food and the beginning of the game. Next, we have 4 copies of Dinosum Radiant Fragrance. So this is your interrupt card in the deck. That attack blocker that we looked at last video. Either pay 1 and discard it, or discard this and another card, and it nullifies an attack. Now, I only have 1 attack nullifier playset in this deck. Normally, I'd suggest running 2. Like in the red deck, I had the Fox Sparks and the Blaze Howl. But honestly, with the way this deck runs, I'm good with the 1 because I need space for other things. Next, we've got 2 copies of Dumud Mellow Bounty. It's a 4-drop, 500, 2 strike. So he's not really here to attack, but he can. On deployment, you get 2 food, same with the Floppy. So if you assign this guy to a farming structure, you take a soul from your soul deck and place it as rest in the soul area. So he is a ramper. So when you assign him to a structure that specifically is labeled as a farming structure, you're going to ramp. And this deck does require you to constantly assign pals. So I could see running 3 of him. I've got 2. I may change that in the future as I do more testing. But for now, I'm doing it with 2. So next we have 3 copies of Battalia Sweet Blessings. This is a 700 beater with 2 strike. It's a 6-drop. So on deployment, you gain 2 life and stand 2 souls. So this is one of the main cards you want to hit with Lylene. She's decent to have as an assigner as well. But she can also be a beat stick if she has to be. And you can use her to accelerate your game plan by untapping souls. That is something you're going to see in this deck. Ramping and soul untapping. Honestly, this deck has a lot of potential with that. So next we have 2 copies of Warsect Iron Fortress. This is a 1500 8-drop beater with 3 strike, and it has the taunt ability. So if this thing is able to be attacked, that means it would have to be in the rested position, not in the standing position, unless the opponent has an ability that allows it to attack standing pals. If it's in the resting position, your opponent has to attack that first. Now, the last pal we have in this deck is actually a blue pal. We got 3 copies of Reptero Christ Glacial Devourer. I only recently woke up. Sorry, I'm a little stumbling over my words. So, on deployment, you draw a card. It's a 1200 attack, 3-strike beater. Once per turn, and this is the reason this is in this deck and why I splashed some blue in here, you can discard 1 card from your hand, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 6 or less cost structures from among them, and deploy them for free. We're running 10 structures in this deck, so this card is honestly busted. Alright, there's only 2 gear in this deck. We've got a couple copies of Farming Hat, so I can rest this card and give a pal plus 200 till end of turn, and you get 1 food. Alright, so let's take a look at our event cards. First, we have 3 copies of Found an Egg. You're checking the top 5, choose a pal among them, add it to your hand. If not, you get 3 food. We've got 3 copies of Blessing of the Spirit Flower, or Blessing of the Flower Spirit. You gain 1 life and draw 1 card. Next, we're looking at 3 copies of Lily's Strategy. You choose one of the following. Either all your pals get plus 1000 until end of turn. You can blow up a structure or gear, or ramp your soul up by 1. Last but not least, we have 1 copy of Pal Sphere. You know, just for facilitating a draw if we need to. Alright, moving on to our structures. I've got 3 copies of Berry Plantation. Once per turn, assign a pal, get 3 food, draw a card. We have Ranch, 2 copies. Assign a pal, either get 3 food or 3 lumber, draw a card. This is a farming structure, so you can assign Mud to it. We've got 2 copies of Feed Box. Once per turn, consume a food, ramp up your souls by 1. If there were 10 or more souls before increasing, you get 2 souls untapped. So you're either ramping or you're untapping. Then the big one, which is also farming, we've got 3 copies of Breeding Farm. You can either consume 2 food and look at the top of your deck. If it's an 8 or less pal, put it in your hand, otherwise put it in the graveyard. Or you can consume 2 food, take an 8 or less pal from your hand, and just straight up deploy it. So like I said, the whole purpose of this deck is making as much food as possible and consuming it with your pals and structures in order to pull off big plays. So it's a really good deck. It's solid. It takes build-up, though, so you got to be careful with it. But all in all, very strong deck, very structure-heavy, so you have to be looking out for that. So if you like this, like and subscribe. Check it out on my YouTube channel as well. Until next time, this has been your Wintry Neighborhood Winter Spell, reminding you guys to stay frosty, and I will see you in the next video.